Now that you've finished the 15-year serialization of Naruto, what kind of days are you spending?
These days, I wake up in the morning, drink coffee while reading manga without thinking about anything, or watch movies with a beer in hand in the middle of the day. Come to think of it, the other day, for the first time in ages, maybe since my child was in kindergarten, we played catch together. Also, I had thought that once I finished work, I'd play games as much as I wanted, seriously for the first time in 15 years. But today's games are so advanced that I can't keep up. During the serialization, the only game I played was Call of Duty. Since it's a shooting game and each round ends in about 15 minutes, I'd play during breaks and such. But after finishing the serialization and deciding to play seriously, for some reason, my scores kept dropping even more than when I was still serializing.
Was it tough to continue a weekly serialization that totaled 700 episodes?
It was just long. It wasn't like it felt long, but then suddenly over. It was just relentlessly long.
Naruto has a multi-layered worldview, including the land of the ninja, its origins and history, and skillfully incorporates elements from folklore, legends, and religion as references and homages. How did you come up with such a worldview?
With weekly serialization, you have to start drawing without even having enough time to carefully think about the next episode's idea. As the story continues, there are scenes where you need to wrap up an episode neatly or where important points come up, but I can only come up with those ideas while drawing the manga. Even if I can't think of something, the manuscript deadline comes every week. So until I get to the episodes I really want to draw, there are what you might call throwaway episodes, though that sounds bad. Episodes that serve as bridges to those scenes. That's how manga artists keep persevering until they reach the truly interesting parts.
Of course, even those bridging episodes have to maintain quality, because if they're not interesting, the serialization will get canceled. And you also need time to do research and input from documents and reference materials. When I come up with an interesting idea, I have to add foreshadowing and tricks to make it as interesting as possible and guide the story to that point. Readers often ask me, why don't you do this interesting episode sooner? But it takes time to build up to that scene. It's tough doing a weekly serialization. Now, having stepped back a bit and reading other people's works objectively, I think, how does everyone manage to keep up with serialization?
The existence of unique characters, each with their own thoughts and conflicts, who appeared one after another in the serialization, was also very popular with readers. How did you create them?
Even now, I don't really understand characters myself. They're born somehow, or rather, first a visual image pops into my head, and when I give them their first line to speak, the character gradually starts talking. Especially when I have them interact with other characters, I think the character starts moving a lot more. Manga artists often say the characters start moving on their own and the story progresses, and I think any writer who creates stories has that feeling. Characters don't listen to what you say at all when they don't want to. They don't move conveniently as you expect, and if you move them too easily, their existence becomes fake and the character loses consistency. As the story progresses and the characters gain depth, things get even more complicated, and they don't move straightforwardly. I think the reason Naruto's serialization became so long is partly because of that.
There were an incredible number of characters in Naruto, but as their creator, who is your favorite character?
For me, Naruto is special no matter what. There are many parts where I project myself onto him and put my feelings into drawing him. So I was a little annoyed, like, why does Kakashi always get all the votes? Also, even though I desperately drew Sakura in so many scenes, for some reason all the popularity votes went to Hinata, and I was like, why? But aside from Marucho being special, I draw all the other characters with the same care and feeling, so I really don't understand why the popularity poll results turn out the way they do. For example, why Neji is always consistently ranked high, or why Choji never seems to get more popular.
As the story progresses, there are times when you have to depict a character's death. How did you think about that?
Above all, since it's a battle manga, I decided I wouldn't run away from death, and that I would depict it properly. When it's time for a character to die, I thought I'd avoid forcing things and just let the flow take its course. Sometimes, I even got letters from readers saying things like, if you kill Kakashi or something. However, after the pain arc, as an important issue in the story, Naruto, the protagonist, came to see the enemy as a human being the same as himself, and that led him to search for a different way of resolving things than just punching the enemy to death to settle it. Naruto, who believes they can understand each other, can't easily kill the other person. So I brought in the somewhat extreme technique of Ito Tensei, which revives people who should have died, like zombies. For me, Ito Tensei isn't coming back to life. They're still, to the end, dead characters.
What frame of mind are you in when you depict a character's death?
When you're drawing a story, death comes surprisingly suddenly. Up until then, for example with Jiraiya's death scene, I sometimes staged it in a rather persistent, drawn-out way. But when Neji died, I deliberately stopped doing that. Death is sudden, and in the middle of a battlefield, there's no room to immerse yourself in sentimentality. You have to be prepared for the fact that you don't know who will die and when. And if you depict death too carefully, it starts to feel fake. But each and every one of Naruto's comrades thinks of Neji and receives something from him. So I'm glad I was able to draw that scene where Neji's feelings are likened to a bird and the Ten-Tail's tail is likened to a cage, and it takes flight from the cage.
It's known that you made your manga artist debut in the same issue in which the popular series Rurouni Kenshin, which had supported Weekly Shonen Jump, reached its final chapter. Do you have any memories from that time?
I was happy that my manga serialization started, but physically I was really weak, and every week when I submitted the finished manuscript to the publisher, I'd run a fever, I'd throw up what I ate. It felt like, can I really keep doing this? My body kept getting worse, and when I went to the hospital with a strange fever, the doctor looked at some value and said, "You know, your cells are dying. In any case, get some rest." It was the first time anyone had told me your cells are dying, and the blood drained from my face. But since it was a weekly serialization, there was no way I could take time off. Back then, for a newcomer who had only just started serialization to take time off was unthinkable, and if that happened, it meant the series would just get canceled. But as you'd expect, my editor at the time thought that if things kept going like this, I'd die, and had it put on hiatus for a little while. At the time, I think everyone involved probably thought, without saying it out loud, "What do you mean you're giving time off to a rookie like this?" Still, from then on, other manga artists also started being able to get breaks little by little, so in that sense, maybe I opened up a new trend. Around that time, I was about 15 kilograms thinner than I am now.
Once you got used to weekly serialization, around when did you start to feel that you were getting results in your work as a manga artist?
Maybe when I got the lead color pages in Jump for the second time after the serialization started. I remember my editor sending the manga manuscript to the publisher by fax and saying, "I'm happy because we got first place." Personally, I tried not to worry too much about the results of Jump's reader rankings, but the editor who started the serialization together with me as a two-person team must have had plenty of stomach-aching experiences up to then, and it made me happy to see how happy he looked. After that, I got married and my life became stable, and I also got sick less often.
Over the 15-year run, many fans said that the world of Naruto was created with reference to real-world international conditions. Was that something you were consciously aware of?
Of course, there are times when I reflect world affairs in the work, but if you pile on too many of those themes, the work starts to get strange. So I tried not to be overly conscious of it. I live in Japan now, so I don't know the actual situations in each country, and it's different from the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke. But I think there are things you can't judge unless you know the other person, and unless you know each other. I'm from Okayama, and I've also visited places like Hiroshima Atomic Bomb Dome, and seeing that does make me think about various things. For example, I've heard that my grandfather had his own side of things and his own feelings, but that's also something that changes as generations change. With that in mind, I draw manga while trying not to overlap it too much with reality.
Are there any scenes you were especially attached to when drawing the manga?
The face Naruto makes when he learns of his mother Kushina's love and feels happy, that made me cry even though I'm the one drawing this work. I thought Naruto's circumstances up to the point he reaches that were just too pitiful. Not only the world's social situation, but when I myself gained a new family and had children, I could understand Naruto's feelings in the work even more. And I also started looking at Naruto from a parent's standpoint. At first, I set Naruto up as having no parents without really thinking about it.
But once you become a parent yourself, you begin to understand how much parents think about their children. It was incredibly frustrating that child Naruto was staying unaware of that, and I wanted to tell him. And there was no way I could move the story forward without doing that.
I think Naruto is a straightforward, classic work that inherits the lineage of battle manga in Shonen Jump. But how do you think about the theme of your own work?
First, it relates to the way of thinking about what a ninja is, but Naruto is different from an orthodox ninja manga. I mean, the main character wears orange clothes and declares, "I'm Naruto." That's a kabuki-like sensibility. So the ninja in this work are not beings who carry out assassinations or sacrifice their lives for their lord. In my mind, I portray them as those who endure and persevere in all things, and that itself might not be very shonen manga-like. So even if there are grudges and resentment in the midst of battle, I wanted to depict ninjas who endure while believing in a future where things will eventually work out. With the pain arc, I could have depicted it in the manga style of way of being killed and then killing back, but then the chain of hatred would continue. Someone has to cut that chain. I wanted to depict Naruto thinking about why it happened and understanding the other person up to that point. Expressing that in a boys' magazine was difficult, and I agonized a lot over, will this really work?
The conclusion of the grand story of the manga Naruto was the fated battle between Naruto and Sasuke. But what do you think about that final ending?
In the end, the two fight, but they make up. Once I decided the story that way, Naruto had to be a character who could forgive the other person after the battle. The pain arc was born in the sense of having him experience forgiveness beforehand, heading toward the final scene. Once that happened, the episodes after that also stopped being simply about Naruto defeating a living enemy. Put another way, even though it's a battle manga, it became difficult to easily portray Naruto just slamming down and defeating a living enemy. That's why things like Edo Tensei and enemies made from plants came to appear in the story.
In the last Naruto the movie, Kishimoto-san, who served as story supervisor, depicts where Naruto's romance ends up. What kind of thinking did you have behind that?
That movie depicts the world 2 years after that war. And if I put it bluntly, it does depict how Naruto and Hinata end up getting together. But to put it another way, it's also a story of parting ways between Naruto and Sakura, Naruto having kept saying he liked Sakura from the very beginning of the story. I think it will neatly resolve the questions and lingering unease that readers felt after reading the final chapter of Naruto, and leave them feeling refreshed.
There was a passionate message from your close friend Aichiro Oda in Weekly Shonen Jump, in which Naruto's final chapter was published. How did you feel?
I was super happy. I immediately told Oda-san thank you online. Like his message on the cover in the author comment space at the back of the magazine, he wrote same generation, friend, and rival, and I'd kept drawing Naruto thinking the same thing myself, so I was truly happy. About One Piece? Of course I'm conscious of it. I mean, it's One Piece. There's no other way to put it. If One Piece didn't exist, if I didn't have that sense of rivalry toward Oda-san, I don't think Naruto would become what it is. So for me, of course, Naruto, but One Piece is also a special work.